Welcome back, everyone. This is information session number 4. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Marco Vargas.
I'm Pablo Gonzalez.
And I'm Samantha Aguilar.
And our team today will be continuing the discussion around how can you design in virtual reality, an SDG virtual reality immersive experience. We're really excited about it because last week we had a great discussion around how to use specifically Engage. Again, welcome. Before I guess I'm just jumping ahead. At this point, we have 450 registrants for the Metaverse Prestige Global Prize in VR competition, and we're seeing the numbers go up every single week. Our formal agenda for today is to demonstrate how your team and you can build in virtual reality, especially using spatial software. To show you this spatial software, we want to first give a couple of general updates as usual. And then we'll jump into a spatial demo. Most of today's session will be a spatial demonstration, which includes an introduction to the platform, a sample room that we built around a concept of blue zones, and also another sample room that we built around the concept of a museum. Again, over the last 2 sessions, we went over steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This is information session number 2 and 3, where we really discussed the methodology of how to design your SDG Metaverse immersive and experiential space in virtual reality. Go ahead and check them out. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email us as well. info@sdgmetaverseprize.org. In coming sessions, what we're going to continue to do is we're going to introduce you to various methods and methodology as well as strategies around how you can build in virtual reality. But we also want to expose you to the broad ecosystem of Metaverse platforms and software. Last week, you heard from Engage, specifically Chris Madison. And Chris Madison was awesome because he showed us all different features and functionality of Engage, which is a platform that we use at Exponential Destiny for some of our work. As a reminder, you are all eligible as participants of the competition to receive a complimentary license of Engage software, and you can contact us at info@sdgmetaverseprize.org. If you want to learn more again about Engage, or if you missed it, it's information session number 3, and you can use this Scan Me button to actually give you a full documentation of what the platform is, and that's all available on the Engage website. And before we transition to Spatial, I just want to do the quick general announcements, which include making sure that everyone is aware that if you haven't signed up for the Metaverse for the community forum on the Facebook group, please do. There's really great discussions happening there, and we'd be excited to see you all chat and interact with each other all around the world. If you're not familiar with the website, make sure that you check out all aspects of the website from 1 through 4. Step number 4 is really important as it includes the official pre-registration form. Everyone who receives our regular communications has already filled out the pre-registration form that puts you on our radar. And followed by that is a team registration form. The team registration form is our main call to action at this time in the competition, where we really want to make sure that we are identifying and establishing 2 to 6 person teams. I won't go over the process of how to complete this form. It's a pretty self-explanatory walkthrough process, but if you need any support, please don't hesitate to contact us. And without any further ado, I would like to formally pass it over to Sam, who will be giving an overview of the Spatial platform. And this will be the platform that we will be demonstrating today. Whenever you're ready, Sam.
Yeah, so hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. I'm going to share my screen right quick. And so I'm going to show some of our past experiences that we've created in Spatial specifically. So this first one is called the Blue Zones. And to give a little context, it's one we did with the Broward County, Florida. That was an educational project we did when we first began. And so our topic was healthy living on a budget. So one of the teams decided, let's look up how people are living longer, even better lives. And something they found was these blue zones. So 5 places in the world where people live the longest. And so if you look around this space, it is pretty packed with a lot of things. So let's just move this way. And so if you look around, this has just basic information on the blue zones, what they are, what are the main characteristics. Up here's a video that you can include in this space. And then as you look around, there's a bunch of 3D objects. And so one of our main how would we say it? Characteristics of this space would be going to each of the blue zones. And so, for example, here we have Icaria, Greece. And if we go into Greece, we're going to see a lot of information about Greece and why they live very long, their diet, their healthy practices. And so one of our goals of this space was actually to have people from these blue zones enter the space live with you and explain personally how their diets are, what exercises they do, what is keeping them alive so long, why is their lifespan being prolonged even more than other regions. And so that's kind of one of our main concepts of this space. And this is just one other space that we've done many, but now I'm going to jump to another one that we've done recently. So can you see this right here? Okay, so this one is the Eagle Urban Art Museum of Reflection. This is a space we created with Chicago, another one of our educational projects. And so this space was built around the topic emotional and social learning. So one of the biggest things this team thought of was, how do we allow students or youth to express their grief in a healthier way? And so if you look around, you see a lot of lanterns and art pieces. So the main objective of this room was to share art, create art, and then just express your grief through art. And if you go around to each lantern, you'll see different things. And so one of the things that many people do to commemorate people is get tattoos. And so here you see images of tattoos. You can see different things that people create. And if you look around, there's a few bigger lanterns in the background. So there's like local community resources. So counselors, any programs that you would need for extra help, and then cultural commemorations. So seeing how other people celebrate or commemorate those who have passed away. And so as you see, you're kind of seeing the desktop version of Spatial itself. So I kind of want to go over a little bit of the features that it has. As you can see, my mouse is my hand. So as I click and scroll around, you move around. You can also use your keyboard arrows to just go forward, back, side to side. Down here, you see mute and unmute. So if you're in Spatial with somebody else, you can talk to them through Spatial specifically and then easily unmuting and muting there. Right next to you see your camera. So if you turn that on, we're going to allow it. You're going to appear as a little bubble right above your head, as you see right there. So if you're with somebody and you're an avatar and you want to feel more personal, you can turn on your camera. And then we're going to follow onto the menu. So here you have sticky notes. Right here, you can create sticky notes to leave feedback, leave messages for people. And so we're just going to put hello. And as you can see right there, it just says hello. So when you click on it, it actually pops up this menu where you can adjust your 3D objects. So you can move it on different axes. So X, Y, Z. You can rotate it around and you can also make it bigger. So as you see here, it also has a lock. So you can lock your item. Nobody can move it after that. You can unlock it. You can edit your sticky note. You can completely change your messaging. And then you can duplicate it. So you want a second one, here you go. And then you can also delete it. So just like that. Right next to it, you see search or URL. So this is the internet for it's just the internet. So you can look up the SDG Metaverse prize. Okay, and then it should appear right here. It's hidden back here. And so stuff will appear about that. So right here, this middle button, that blue plus sign, that's actually your content button. So if you have 3D models, PNGs, images, videos, 3D objects, anything you want to add, you would add it with this blue button. So this is specifically adding stuff from your personal collection. So if you click on it, as you see, there is a lot of stuff here. So these are 3D models. These are just PNGs, screenshots, videos. And then you can also add stuff from Spatial's interior library right here. NFTs, this is a new component that they added recently. Templates, which is basically a screenshot of another room that you can make. Integration, so this is Google Drive, Microsoft. You can upload your documents or images from there. And then upload, this is just files from your device. So if we continue, you can also add portals to other rooms. So you can choose a space that already exists or create one from a link that's shared with you. And so let's see, if we're to put one to the blue zones, it would just appear like that, and you could just click on it and travel to another room. And then you can also share your screen, how I'm doing here right now. And then right here, you can change your avatar. So right now, as you can see, this is my avatar, and you can change exactly how that looks. There's so many more features that they've been adding lately, like this like button up here, so you can like a space. You can take pictures, record within the space. And then this is how you can share the room with other people. So you can copy the link or you can invite them directly through email. So not to go into too much detail, but there is some more controls. So you have your settings, environments, which is kind of how you see this grassy lanterny environment created. They can place host tools, which allows you to mute people, kick people out, make the space specifically for viewing only. Leaving audio so you don't have to hear what's happening, because there are public spaces in Spatial. So maybe you don't want to be a part of a conversation, which is completely okay. You can just leave audio. Save this space as a template so you can copy and paste it somewhere else and then delete it. And then they have just help, controls, and pairing your headset so you can put it and see it in VR, which I will now pass on to Pablo to start transitioning about that aspect a little more.
Thank you, Sam. I hope you all can see my screen. So now, as you can see, I'm in virtual reality. As you can tell by my controllers, by when I move my head, I can see around. And now I'm going to show you how to get into Spatial and how to interact with Spatial a little more in actual virtual reality and get more of that immersive feel. So, of course, to get Spatial, you need to get it from the App Store. So, before this call started, I actually went on the App Store and preloaded the screen. So here you can see that, with a search of Spatial, I actually have it come up. So it's the first option is this little icon. I could launch it from here, or I can launch it from my app tray. Since I'm here, I'm gonna just press launch, and now I've been teleported into Spatial. As you can see, the app is now launching. Usually I give it a few seconds to load. This is the introduction screen. And in the background, you may be hearing some ambient noises. And here we can see that we're greeted by the Spatial introduction room. Now, if this is your first time joining in Spatial, you will naturally spawn into this room, and you'll be given an introduction to Spatial, more of how you get to interact with objects and so forth within the app. But that's what we're going to do right now. So here you see in front of me the Spaces menu. This is actually where you can see all the spaces you have created yourself, all the spaces you have within your organization, and the spaces that people actually have created for others to explore. So on the Explore tab, we see 10 spaces that are public spaces where you could join and interact with different communities and individuals, as well as you could join personalized spaces within your own team, or you could create a space on your own. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to join a space that I have created for this demonstration. So here we are in now the SDG information 4 room. Here we see Samantha over here. Hey Sam, if you can wave. Yep, there's Sam waving. So what Sam is doing is on the computer, since she obviously doesn't have any hands to interact with me, Spatial has a few integrated reactions that she could do. Like if she clicks C, then she could clap, which actually, if I push both controllers together, I could do that, and so much more. Like there's so many reactions I could do in Spatial, but the basics when you first join into a room is, of course, how do you move, right? And that's actually a really simple kind of way of how you interact with the room. So I'm actually gonna go into the screen to show you what I'm pressing. So this joystick right here that you see I'm tapping on, this joystick right here is what you push forward to actually get this blue beam. So this blue beam in front of you, like a fishing pole, is essentially is how you teleport. So wherever this blue beam is landing on the floor, I'm teleported to that location instantly. And that's the mechanics of moving around in Spatial. It's really simple, really intuitive. After a few minutes, it becomes second nature. And that's really that's really like movement 101, right? You aim it down in front of you, you push forward, and that's how you go forward. It's the same process for going backwards. To move left and right, you simply flick that joystick either to the left and to the right, and that's the two movement system in Spatial that makes it really easy and makes it really familiar to kind of move around in these environments. It's not really a jarring process. It's not too much to memorize. It's really easy to get in the process of walking and chewing gum at the same time. But now I actually want to go more into the menus that virtual reality has for Spatial, because there's a lot more than on the desktop version. So as you can see in front of me, I now have the same menu that Samantha had on her desktop, but I have a few more options. I have, the same ones that you saw on the desktop. I have the mute, I have the notes, which on desktop, it allows me now to actually write with my finger. It's my name. I can now move this object forward and back. And the way that I'm doing that is on the Oculus, if you see back here, these triggers, if I actually click on that trigger and hold it, that allows me to click on this object as if I was clicking with a computer mouse, right? This is a left click on a computer mouse, and if I now push my joystick forward and back, that allows me to bring this object anywhere in the room with me. And then I could, if I do the same thing with both my controllers, so both the backside of my paddles, I can now grab and make this really, really, really big. And then this feature is really useful for when you're bringing in high quality objects and you need really set the stage and set an environment. So I'll make this just a little bit smaller for now, so that we can see some of the beautiful architecture we see in the room, which we're gonna talk about a little bit more on how we actually got into this space right here. But saying in the actual menus, I have the same blue button, the same blue cross as Sam did, but I have just a few more options, a few more screens. I still have the browser as Samantha had, the share screen, and the notes. And you might also see a few more integrations. Like you can actually connect your Google Drive, your NFT wallet, and your Microsoft 360 account. So you can easily pull files out of any cloud storage that you like to be able to easily present stuff to anybody in the room. But a few that Samantha didn't have, for example, is the search function, to where I can now, on a whim, if we're having a conversation, and let's say we're talking about cats, I could really easily look up cats, and then I'll be met with a few free objects off the internet. Now, these objects aren't the most high fidelity and the highest quality objects, but they were brought into the space really fast, and most importantly, they're free. So this feature in itself allows for really quick customizing of any environment with free objects, with just a quick search, a few keystrokes. Or Spatial has a really cool option where I could actually auto dictate, and that's chosen up here. So I could, so when I press this mic up here, it actually mutes my microphone in the room, and I can. Actually, I might not be able to. Oh, I have the keyboard open. Oh, I can't click this right now. It's pretty strange. Okay, well, moving on with the options. Yeah, I could bring in objects for free from anywhere on the internet, as well as pictures. And I also have the option to scribble, right? I could scribble actually in 3D space, which allows for some pretty, some pretty customizable and creative responses to any kind of question. It also allows for some peer-to-peer interactions if, say, me and Sam want to play tic-tac-toe. But those are just a few of the VR specific options that are in here. And I also have the same flexibility of a carousel of bringing objects and then being able to maneuver them. So for example, as you saw me do with the sticky note, I could bring in a digital object that I actually got off Marketplace, and I can now grab this object, I can now maneuver it, and I can make it bigger, make it smaller, or I can make it the environment. So one cool thing that Spatial does have is you could set an environment. This is one of the out of the box options that Spatial actually has, that allows you to just hop in and start creating. But as you're gonna see right now, there's actually quite a few different environments that Spatial has right out of the bat, which makes it really interesting and really cool, because you could create anything with this one environment that I actually really like. It is just a blank room, right? It's called the abstract room, but if I set it, we are now in a gridded white space that lets me go in and now create anything that my imagination desires, right? Because we are now in a gigantic white space. Which now, if I bring in the bedroom, for example, this is a perfect time to actually show you guys, a quick introduction of environments, because you're not limited to just the out of the box options that Spatial gives you. If you're able to pull in any kind of object and make a custom environment yourself, just using some out of the box features. So you're gonna see right above here a few options Spatial has. I can either lock an object or unlock it. That means nobody else can interact with it. Um, if I unlock that, I can make it 1-to-1 scale. I could duplicate this object and make as many as I like. There's a limit in the room, but within reason, I can make anything I want. Then right here is a really cool function called environment. So what I could do with this environment now, also skybox, which I could change the actual sky in this room, but the environment is really cool because it allows me to take any object off the internet and create my own personalized room and environment within Spatial. So if I set that, and I make this now just a little bigger, I can now set that as the environment, and we are going to be inside. There you go. There's San Marcos, and now we're inside of this bedroom. Right? We start off in a white space, and now we're inside a bedroom that is not out of the box and Spatial, but is customizable. Hey Marcos, I think you're inside the bed. But it's good that you guys are here, because I actually wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how do we get started in creating a narrative around an SDG. So let me actually fix the environment a little bit, and let's go into more of an appropriate environment for discussing. One that I like is the auditorium. So let me change that really fast. And now let's talk a little bit about SDGs. Marco, I think you might be on mute. So the way you unmute yourself is you stick your finger out and you touch that. Mute.
Marco, you sound a bit like
Yeah,
a
you sound a bit
robot.
robotic, but you guys just saw a pro feature. We have the option to actually mute people, which is really actually really funny. Oh, oh, yeah, Marcos. Your audio is still just a little bit robotic. It's not. Yeah,
Yes, you sound a little bit. We can hear you, but it's super.
it's a bit jittery. Yeah, it's a little jittery, I could say.
It sounds like a robot.
It's not a helicopter. To give a little context, Marcos is actually tuning in from halfway across the road, and well, actually not that far, not across the road, but he's actually in Costa Rica. So, I'm not too sure of his internet strength, but yeah, he's actually tuning in from quite a ways away. But if it's Sam and I guess we could spearhead the conversation while Marcos reconnects. That sound good? Oh,
Oh, there it comes. Yes.
oh. No, you're still in the same predicament.
You may have to reset your headset entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll continue. Yeah, we'll see. We'll
Yes,
see you
we
in
can
one.
start the
Yeah, we'll see you in a minute.
conversation.
Sounds a bit like a helicopter.
Yeah, a little
But
bit. Okay, so with our tools, I was actually able to mute Marco. So that's kind of one of the host tools you have in Spatial. You can mute others.
we can.
But okay, to get started with this brainstorming, so let's see, let's pick an SDG.
Hmm.
So let's pick SDG.
What's SDG that like?
Which one sounds interesting?
Let me see. What's one that you're interested in? One that I like a lot is actually life underwater. The ocean actually really interests me as just so unknown.
Okay. So first, let's bring in a graphic.
Oh yeah.
Let's just see, so we have all of them. And so right now I'm actually joining virtually as well. So I'm making this bigger with my hands. Okay, so let's see. Let's search up life underwater.
Yeah. SG 14.
SDG. Oh,
SG 14, and then let me also bring in one of the graphics that we normally use when trying to figure out how to exactly craft a narrative around a metaverse environment, which actually falls under one of our pedagogies, which is it is the wow versus education factor. So let me bring this in and make this just a little bit bigger so that we could interact with it inside virtual reality. So if you wouldn't mind, Sam, you want to kind of like reassure to the audience, what is it, what is the wow versus education factor exercise that we do?
yes. So the WOW versus education exercise that we do is this 2 by 2, as you can see here. So one side is WOW factor and one side is education. So that education factor specifically is research you do, statistics, information that already exists and that's already been written down. So it's just stuff you can easily teach people specifically. And then the wow factor, that's where you kind of think about how to make this information fun to teach.
Mhm.
So do you want to just read a screen full of information in a virtual reality space, or do you want to be in a spaceship flying around different planets, reading information and seeing different videos? So that's kind of where that wow comes in. You have to try to think of ways of how to make it entertaining but still educational. So that concept of edutainment that we always talk about.
Yeah, it's really good. One of the examples that I actually
Can you hear me, Simon?
oh yeah, we
Pablo?
can actually.
Can you
That's
hear me? Sorry, I
so
just
much better.
Yes.
That's crystal clear.
okay. Okay, sorry, I just needed to reset my headset. Let me stand up here. Um, so let me just jump in real quick for the wow and education factor. If everyone can hear me now.
Hmm.
What I wanted to just add here is that this is actually one of the a core criteria for how judges will be evaluating every single SDG immersive and virtual reality space virtual reality room that all groups submit. We want to make sure that there's a balance between really education and also entertainment. It's a concept called edutainment in each experience. And this is really important because we want to make sure that through this competition, we're increasing awareness, empathy, um, about the sustainable development goals. And right now, one of the unfortunate things around the world is that a lot of people are not familiar with the framework of the sustainable development goals, and we're trying to increase awareness about it through this competition. And so making sure that every single room is being built in a way that has the stakeholder in mind and specifically interacts with that stakeholder and presents information in a way that actually makes education and learning about the SDGs fun. And that, obviously the task at hand is really to learn about one specific SDG. And so really we encourage you as a team here to think really critically around like who you're building your room for, right? And we went over that through design thinking. I think that was step 2 in information session number 2. And we also want to encourage you to take into consideration how can you use edutainment to make your experience something that is actually relevant to your target audience. And I'll stop right there.
Yeah, that's a really helpful and relevant explanation, Marcos. Um, that's kind of how Sam was saying. So in these discussions and conversations, one example that I actually use when I try to explain the 2 by 2 exercise is for the educational factor. If you were an educator in a classroom, what will be the content that you teach? What are the main bullet points and what's the criteria that people that go through the experience or just that go through the curriculum need to know? What are they learning exactly? And then for the wow factor is what's engaging, what's fun, how can you merge the content with an experience that's engaging, right? Like Disneyland is a really fun experience. You don't learn too much, but you're engaged the entire time. So how do we make you know how do we merge and marry the ideas of a fun experience that you learn out of it? So I'm actually gonna put this graphic just a little bit backwards so that we could start to lay out some of our graphics here, and we get some more of a holistic view of what we're working with exactly. So,
So I'm actually going to put the SDGs under education because I would say that's a pretty educational
yeah,
thing.
it is. So have we chosen an SDG? I know I proposed number 14, life underwater.
I think maybe we should brainstorm number 12, responsible consumption and production.
Hmm, I like that one too.
Awesome. Let's go and do that.
So right now, just searching it within here, I actually found some cards. So these actually are cards that have targets of what we're doing with this goal specifically. So I would say this is pretty educational. So this is sustainable management and use of natural resources. So that's one thing that this goal is trying to achieve. Another thing
One thing.
is, oh, go.
Oh yeah, just one thing to add here that like let's say you have a team of 6 people and you see how the card right in front of you, as Pablo showing on his screen, is small. Before you make it, you can actually make this really large, and you can make it as large as you need to, especially even in an auditorium setting. I'm gonna lock the other one right there, but I'm gonna make it small again. But you can kind of see how you can manipulate these digital objects, so that way it's just conducive for your team to collaborate, and everyone has a good uh, perspective of what content is being shown in the room.
Yeah, it's actually really useful slides I've ever seen.
Yes.
Reasonable management of chemicals and waste, sustainable.
Yeah, and this might be some of the research that your team does as well, right? So right now we're just mapping out some of the research we did for SDG. What number was it?
12.
12.
Number
Mm-hmm.
12, responsible consumption.
Yes.
Hmm.
So thinking about it where it's like saying sustainably reduce waste generation, management of chemicals and waste, management of and use of natural resources. Honestly, when thinking about this, I kind of think of the game Pac-Man a little bit, just
Mm-hmm.
because is he consuming ghosts
Hmm. Okay.
sustainably?
Mm-hmm.
But just for say, like if this was a game, you could put some really bad objects that he's consuming or just over consuming. So I would put that in the wow factor
Yeah, a
specifically.
Pac-Man game. One thing that I mean, an idea that I'm also
Hmm.
getting when just seeing like some of the background information and context is I'm thinking of like dinosaurs because I'm seeing like natural resources and like when I hear that I first picture fossil fuels and then like so like that dinosaurs is one thing that like I'm like picturing for some reason. So um hmm, actually gonna write it out. Dinosaurs. And then the thought that I had while like like trying to like figure out exactly what the this SCG is about is I don't actually really know what happens to like our waste and like after I throw it away or I recycle like what happens after I throw in a blue can compared to a green or a black can like where does it go after the garbage man takes it away. um Dinosaur. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I spelled that right, but like dinosaurs, that's one education factor. I mean, or like one like wow factor that I'm thinking of, like prehistoric time, perhaps. Hmm, animal. Oh, that's cool. Rhinoceros.
Yeah, I was just thinking about adding in the rhinoceros. I think it's when I think about responsible consumption, I also think about the impact it has on specific
Mm,
species. As we all know, unfortunately, a large amount of animals continue to go extinct, a large part because of human behavior and specifically our consumption patterns. And so I would just kind of put in the fun edutainment like a rhinoceros, and maybe even there's other animals that have gone extinct, who no longer exist. But I know there's certain breeds of rhinoceroses that don't exist anymore.
interesting. Uh,
Um,
yeah. The
Yes, so I don't know if you can see behind Marco, but there's another me in here. So that's actually my desktop, and I actually just brought in some notes that I gathered from the internet. just a simple Google search on SDG number 12. And so it has different little facts like why does it matter? So like different little facts like each year an estimated 1/3 of all food produced equivalent to 1.3 billion tons worth around 1 trillion ends up rotting in bins of consumers and retailers. So it's kind of just letting us know where all this waste is going, what's happening with our food, and then humankind is polluting water in rivers and lakes faster than nature can recycle and purify it. So this is just simple Google searches. And then if I go over, so this is actually a PDF, which allows me to kind of scroll like a PowerPoint. And so I'm going to click to the next one.
Oh wow.
There's some more information and then a graphic that I got from the internet as well that I was just able to bring in like this. So some more facts, you can make it bigger so we can all see. And I wanted to just show how fast and easy it is to just bring information like this in.
Actually, really cool. Can I go back to the first slide and look at if a few of the facts? Just to get like a bit more context on the SDG a little bit. According to latest projections, global population grew around 8.5 billion 2030. 3 planets required.
Yeah, and what I want to point out right now is that, like, as a team, you can see how, like, we're a three-person team right now exploring SCG number 12, and we have a whole workspace that, right, we're in an auditorium setting inside Spatial. What you'll notice is that we've already taken the time to use the WOW versus education factor matrix, which, is us encouraging everyone to practice edutainment in your SDG design, and we're bringing in all sorts of objects. We're bringing in research, right? And right now, this research is large, right? Because we're trying to explore and dive into it. And at the end of the day, like when we're done with this research, we can go ahead and minimize it and bring it back we could even put it under the kind of more educational aspects. And this literally can be a live workspace that, let's say if you have scheduling issues with your team, maybe what you want to do is you can ask everyone on the team and say, hey, within the next 5 days, please go into to Spatial or your chosen virtual reality room, and please add in some research or some objects that can help us have a critical discussion around our SDG. So this is something that we really do want to emphasize and encourage as a team, because this is the kind of thought process that really will help jumpstart you into the spatial web design aspect of the competition. And spatial web design is so much fun, but it's so much more productive when you actually have a strategy and a direction, and specifically any action items that are informed from the research that you did. So that's why we're encouraging everyone to complete a concept, a virtual reality a concept proposal process, and this is part of that process. Sorry to interrupt. Were there any other updates, Sam, or any other additional things you'd like to show for Spatial?
No, we showed all the basics. There's a lot of more functions you can go into as well, but this is kind of just an introduction, so feel free to explore on your own. Spatial is a free platform, and you can access it through your desktop or your cell phone as well. They do have an app, so there's various ways to get in. So please explore.
Yeah, awesome. And I think just to kind of end on a little bit of a fun note, why don't we show the bringing in digital objects from the internet again? And I can bring in maybe trash, and maybe you could bring in animals, Sam?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started.
Let me see how vast this. You have a garbage can over here, a garbage truck. Bring that. No, would be interesting. What we could create on the fly would be like a full circle like ecosystem of how like waste goes from consumer to like landfill, and how that affects different biomes and animal populations. Let me see. That's truck. Uh,
And you can see right now, just to describe what Sam is doing, she's using the internet search option, which is if you click content and you go all the way to the left, there's search. She's clicking and searching, either typing it out or using the voice to text feature of Spatial to actually bring in digital objects in real time. And digital objects can be pictures, and they can actually
See.
be 3D models that are available under the, as Pablo explained. One thing to note here is that you can kind of start seeing a picture of like just talking about SDG number 12 briefly and having some research with us, how we are able to paint a picture about what responsible consumption looks like, right? On my end, which I did research on, right now I just brought a digital object that show trash. You can kind of see how, this picture is very much reflective of what happens in a large part of the world where, we have trash cans and trash bags, and those bags right there are also plastic. And then, trash cans can look very differently in many parts of the world, right? And you can see here in these two examples, how you have some that are bigger and some that are smaller. And so imagine your team continuing this discussion, and specifically our team right here, where we're really interested in moving on to the next process after we've completed the wow versus education factor method, which promotes edutainment. We can actually start building a story and a narrative to help educate people about what responsible consumption and production looks like. It can be a conversation about how literally, and in this example, it could be a dialogue and story about how we can take people from learning about what happens when you put trash inside the trash can, right? From the whole process of you putting it inside the trash bin and then it going all the way to the landfill. And then from the landfill, the next mark could be showing how it impacts maybe the oceans or specific animals or ecosystems, right? Because unfortunately, there are some parts and some instances where trash is being disposed of in irresponsible ways. For example, being dumped inside the ocean, and then we have these large vortexes of trash that devastate ecosystem. And so you can see that in virtual reality, you can really start to create an immersive and experiential learning environment in almost a matter of minutes. Again, we're recommending everyone to really take the time to invest and think critically around how do you design a spatial room that builds empathy and awareness and educates people about one specific SDG. Any other notes before we jump off from spatial, Sam or Pablo?
Not about spatial, but I just want to add a note. Like obviously we're time boxed in this exercise, but with the length of the competition, we encourage you guys to really go into spatial, go and engage with whichever platform that you choose, and really take time to really plan out an education versus a wow factor experience, right? Like it doesn't have to be time boxed an hour. It could take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, as long as you might need to create a really creative and really out of the box environment.
Awesome. Well, I feel good. Let's go back on Zoom and say, and just wrap up.
Let's go back on Zoom.
Bye. Welcome back, everyone. And there you have it. That is the or formal demo of Spatial. Again, Spatial is a free metaverse software platform that we occasionally use for some of our education project work, and it's also an option for you to use as part of your SDG design process. There's various platforms. Again, we're going to continue to expose you time and time and again to some of these platforms. And again, something that you should note is that there's different features and functionality, and so it really depends on the story you want to tell that of how you select your platform. So you may actually pick one platform and then realize that another platform has the features and functionality that you need, and so you may need to pivot. And so we do want to say that that's okay. There's plenty of time, at least starting now, for your team to experiment, and that's what we want to see. We want to make sure that you're taking the time to learn, to gain exposure, right, to teach others, right. It's really through hands-on and actual practice in virtual reality that we believe many of you can build a sophisticated amount of metaverse skills. It doesn't happen overnight. However, we want to give you the information so that way to point you in the right direction. Again, thank you for coming today. For today, we went over a good amount of information, and I hope we continue the same energy from the last session with Engage. Spatial is an equally as much powerful platform for different use cases, and so it really depends on what you want to use your experience for. I personally will say that Spatial is a great platform for meetings and facilitating conversations. I enjoy the dialogue inside Spatial, but Engage, in my personal preference, is to actually uh, tell a story simply because of the engaged creative content creator. But there's plenty of articles also online that you might be able to find if you're a little inquisitorial and you search online, like different software platforms, pros and cons, and features and functionality. And you'll notice that every single platform is built uniquely for different use cases. So it really depends on how your team wants to build in the metaverse. So thank you again for joining us. This is information session number 4. My name is Marco, joined here by Pablo and Sam, and we will see you next time. If you haven't followed us already on social media, please do. We are available at info@sdgmetaverseprize.org to provide you support. And again, if you haven't registered your team, remember we're looking for 2 to 6 person teams to really move forward to the next part of the process in the competition. Thank you again for coming, and we'll talk again soon.